Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for Friday's Alaska statewide weather. I'm Dave Percy, meteorologist with the National Weather Service. First graphic up this is a Barrow webcam there. I can see kind of hazy look. Well, that's fog in the area there. It was down to 3/4 of a mile in fog at the airport. So when I look at the observation, east winds gusting 20-25 miles an hour, temperature 37 degrees. Obviously no snow up there. And coming down to King Salmon, this is the west view there. Still in the sunshine, temperature 72 degrees. And the next one here, this is Pilot Point, which looks like a hot savanna, dry. There with I didn't realize it was browned out that way already, but not a bad day there. Sunshine, temperature 72 degrees, and Port Heiden very similar, except their temperature 75 degrees along the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula there, with light downslope winds and warm air aloft. And onto the satellite image, you can see the more or less the clear skies there. Just this band of clouds really fell apart and dissipated. Sunshine along the Alaska Peninsula into northeast Bristol Bay. Held together a little better here over the southwest interior. And then the eastern interior, not looking bad. A lot of sunshine here from the north central part of the state, right on down to south central Alaska, Kodiak Island. And then behind this band of mid and high level clouds there, just some altocumulus high stuff up there over the north slope. And then the patchy areas of fog, mainly along the central Arctic coast. Clear skies, eastern Beaufort Sea coast. Barter Island, Kaktovik reporting clear skies in their observations this afternoon. And some clouds, but precipitation free over the southern southeast coast, all that sliding off to the southeast. Lingering clouds in the south, increasing sun up to the north there with clearing. And out to the west, yet another very weak system. You can see low pressure tracking northeastward toward the Pribilofs. Another band behind that that's doesn't look like much, and it really isn't. It looks a little better than these two do, but even that one not carrying a lot of no heavy wind or precipitation with it. And we'll see rolling that again. You can see everything, though, is moving toward the northeast, and that's going to increase the moisture as that continues, and the high pressure ridge that's been holding over the state begins to fall apart. That's going to allow eventually a front to bring precipitation into south central Alaska back up toward the Seward Peninsula by Sunday. On the chart today, here's that area of light precipitation along the southwest coast there, and some showers, generally amounts ranging from 1 to 500ths with this feature, back up toward the southern coast of the Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island. Cape Romanzoff did pick up 1500ths this afternoon, and then just anywhere from 5 to 10 hundredths of an inch with this system passing across the central Aleutians with some fog and some winds kicking up to about 20 to 30 miles an hour out of the west-southwest is recorded at Adak and Atka, so nothing too serious there. Good sunshine here over south central Alaska, and that allowed temperatures to rise into the lower to mid 70s. Some areas of the Kenai Peninsula here, like Ski Lac Guard Station, up around Big Lake and Wasilla. So very nice day with temperatures again in the 60s to lower 70s, and sunshine, Copper River Basin up into the Tanana Valley 40-mile country. Again, the patchy fog spoke of, we saw in the up there around the Barrow area, and the clouds here over the southern southeast coast. And taking a look at the forecast for tonight, this band moisture edges eastward, southwesterly flow aloft, upper level trough coming up into the southeast Bering. And that'll eventually will continuously increase the moisture and push everything northeastward here tonight and through the weekend. Staying fair, south central Alaska, maybe a few clouds, variable clouds with those weakening bands. Nothing significant, mostly mid and high level stuff into the eastern interior. Continuing to dry out over the panhandle. Clear skies, dry air. Frost advisories out tonight from 3 a.m., or actually tomorrow morning from 3 a.m. to 8 a.m. from Yakutat all the way down about the northern 2/3 of the panhandle there, for temperatures dropping possibly 29 to 35 degrees tonight, and that'll produce some areas of frost in some locations there. Otherwise, low clouds and fog on the increase here over the Gulf of Alaska. Kodiak stays dry, but definitely see an increase in the clouds, and higher pressure and a little bit of a breakout here, and another weak trough back to the west. And we'll see for the day tomorrow, little bit more widespread area of light rain, and this entire shaded zone here won't see precipitation, but most areas will probably at least pick up some sprinkles. But again, amounts will be on the light side, probably nothing more than 2/10 of an inch here from the Seward Peninsula back down. Kodiak, southwest side of the island, could pick up a little bit more, but definitely look for clouds increase late tonight and tomorrow here for south central Alaska. If, decent chance of light rain reaching the southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula, southern Cook Inlet, and especially over toward the western Alaska Range. Even the Kuskokwim Valley will see a chance of light precipitation tomorrow afternoon, best chance down to the southwest. Clouds increase and move across the Copper River Basin into the afternoon with ceilings visibilities lowering there as well. Stays clear and dry from the Arctic coast all the way down into, roughly till you get to about the Alaska Range there. So that'll include the mid and upper Tanana Valley. Sunshine tomorrow afternoon for the Panhandle there. Temperatures recovering into the 50s, lower 60s. And then for Sunday, you can see this system pushes in and holds together pretty good here. A couple of lows coming in with better upper support, so better chance of some light rain in areas coming across south central Alaska, Kenai Peninsula, even into Prince William Sound, up across the Matanuska Valley and back to the northwest to the across the Kobuk Valley, Selawik Valley, to Kotzebue Sound, and pretty wet conditions for the Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island zone. Look for sunshine there, eastern North Slope out to the eastern Arctic coast, and also staying dry for at least another day. So a really good weekend coming up there for the Panhandle. Nothing but sunshine, and even the Copper River Basin, mostly in the western areas, seeing a chance of rain into the, probably by afternoon with increasing showers over possibly toward the eastern border, as well as around the White Mountain areas, maybe some precipitation trying to spill into the Tanana Valley with this system. And out to the west, pretty long fetch, a west-southwesterly flow at the surface. They're coming over the high that's now retreated well to the south. So lots of IFR, low clouds and considerable areas of drizzle, especially along any weak trough that's caught up in that flow and heads in toward the southwest coast and hits the Pribilofs. That'll stay along and mostly north of the Aleutians, though, but you still see mostly cloudy skies. Could see some sunshine possibly on the lee side or Pacific side of the Fox Islands, as well as the Alaska Peninsula, but definitely no, it won't be a repeat either tomorrow or Sunday of the day you saw today there over Bristol Bay on down toward Port Hayden. And taking a look at low temperatures for tonight, lower 50s here over across all of the Panhandle. Some areas staying kind of mild there, 53 degrees, and well as Unalaska. Mid to upper 40s for the Aleutians, Pribilofs on up to St. Lawrence Island, to the northwest coast here, 40s to lower 50s over the southwest interior, and 25 to 32 here over the eastern part of the state, all the way down mid-30s Copper River Basin, below freezing over toward the Wrangell Mountains. And it looks like 30s to mid-40s. And again, some areas dropping down below that frost point there where the frost advisories are out for the northern half of the Panhandle over to about Yakutat. And then for the highs tomorrow, bouncing back into the, at least into the, well into the 60s, probably for the Susitna Valley, Matanuska, and Susitna Valley's Kenai Peninsula, a day much like today. Temperature-wise, although depending on how fast the clouds come in, especially to the Susitna Valley, those temperatures may be a little cooler than today. Probably won't see 70s anywhere around the state tomorrow, and that may be it for the season. As well as Panhandle there, that'd be the best chance, maybe mid-60s, 66, 7 possibly, and 40s along the Arctic coast and North Slope. And then for the lows again, a little milder now with increasing moisture trying to come in, so 30 to 35 over the eastern interior up to the eastern Arctic coast, and lower to mid-30s again for the Panhandle. Highs looking pretty good, lower 60s for the southeast coast.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on into the first line weather graphic here, lots of IFR. Eastern Bering Sea right into the southwest coast with that southwest flow pushing the moisture in, and along and south of the Alaska Peninsula to up the east side of Kodiak Island, spreading into the Gulf of Alaska. Stays VFR here through much of the interior until you get to the Brooks Range and to the north, and the conditions drop off to IFR and stays VFR for the Panhandle tomorrow afternoon. This area retreats back to the west, and so it stays VFR across the Panhandle. But marginal VFR spreading northeastward, east-northeast by afternoon, all the way across the Copper River Basin up to the Alaska Range. VFR, Tanana Valley, northward, becoming VFR on the Arctic coast and North Slope. IFR here over along the west coast and pushing into Bristol Bay and extending down to the Fox Islands. Break with some VFR for AKwx and ATKA, and then more IFR just out to the west. That mostly streams northeastward and slower progression eastward, just reaching AKwx by early Sunday morning with marginal VFR for Unalaska and Nikolsky Dutch Harbor up across the Alaska Peninsula. Now we've got this area IFR shifting inland here, extending from the Seward Peninsula right on down across the southern Kuskokwim Valley, central southern Kuskokwim Valley, especially along the mountains there, Kuskokwim Mountains, into northeast Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, up along the Alaska Peninsula, all the way to central Alaska Range there, with the western Alaska Range is mostly on the, actually that could be on the western slopes with the IFR, but marginal VFR still all the way across the Copper River Basin, trying to spill into the Tanana Valley. VFR North Slope in the Panhandle and for Sunday afternoon. Again, another VFR day for the southeast coast with a lot of marginal VFR now pushing northeastward and eastward, or hanging in over the Copper River Basin, south central Alaska, Kodiak, northward to the Brooks Range. North Slope, though, staying in the VFR zone, as well as much of the Arctic coast with IFR from the Bering Strait on down across central Bering Sea to about AKwx on out to the west. So taking a look at the passes, for Anaktuvik, VFR tomorrow, same forecast for Adigan, another VFR day. Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR becoming IFR, so deterioration conditions throughout the day tomorrow for not only Lake Clark and Merrill, but also for rainy. Windy, though, should stay VFR. Probably see sea lanes visibilities will be slowly coming down, but it won't get to the marginal category. And for Isabel, again, downward trend to marginal in the afternoon. Mentasta, though, again, like Windy, you'll be seeing an increase, thickening, lowering of the clouds, but staying in the VFR zone. And for Tanita, downward trend, VFR, possibly becoming marginal VFR in the afternoon. That's just a slight chance, could be VFR the entire day, but for Portage, more likely going marginal at some point in the afternoon. And Chilkoot and White, looks like 2 days of VFR flying weather. 8,000-foot freezing levels here over the eastern southeast Bering Sea, but 10,000 still wedging northward here with that upper level ridge, narrowing and holding though over the interior, and then sloping back down. Still some cool air here along the east with that northerly flow that's weakening and shifting off to the east a little bit, and then a little bit warmer back out over the western Aleutians. And icing threats with the weak bands of moisture coming inland, and the orange shaded areas, I would call that areas of possible considerable moderate rime icing. Otherwise, this area mostly would be areas of light rime icing, and that's about it, above 7,000 feet Seward Peninsula, sloping up to 10,000 feet down around Kodiak Island. And the upper level windfold chart showing this upper level ridge getting pinched off, this system moving northeastward. This one also kind of just slowly dropping southeastward. So we've got 30 to 50 knot southeasterlies and the 50 to 60 knot winds pushing into the border though, but keeping it dry for the Panhandle with that offshore flow, and westerlies along and south of the Aleutians. 9,000 feet, 25 to 30 knot winds here across the Bering Sea, turning northwest across the Alaska Peninsula at the same speed, and then south to southwest 30 knots into the from the Aleutian Range, northeast Bristol Bay to the southern Alaska Range. Light and variable up here to the north, a weak low there near the Brooks Range, ridging off the southeast coast, light north to northeasterlies 15 to 20, picking up about 25 down toward Dixon Entrance, and from there we'll take a look at the turbulence out west over the far western Aleutians.
We always knew the site was there, but we thought it was gone due to erosion. My grandfather would tell about the bow and arrow wars, about two kids, playing with darts, and one eye was poked, so the other kid's father came and did the same thing. So from that, it became a full-blown war. To see this excavation bring that story alive is one of the most fascinating things I've seen. I mean, the stories we've heard and the evidence they're pulling out from Nunasuk, it's no longer a legend, it's becoming a fact.
My name is Rick Connect, and I'm principal investigator of the project. We have 11 PhDs. We use a lot of student volunteers. We work with professional conservators to make it all happen. We've got Dr. Paul Ledger, who's working on the history of climate here. Dr. Veronique Forbes, who's an archaeoentomologist who studies insects. Dr. P.T. Ashlock, who's also a professional archaeologist from Southeast Alaska. Dr. Madonna Moss is from the University of Oregon, who specializes in faunal analysis.
There are mussel shells throughout this site. There's another bigger piece, and we don't know where they're coming from.
The Nunalak site was originally a village. Elders tell us that this site extended out about 200 feet. Since 2009, we've lost more than 30 feet on that piece of shoreline. And our 2009 and 2010 excavation blocks are completely gone already. It's very much a race against time. But this particular structure with a covered boardwalk running down the middle of it was an adaptation to the bow and arrow wars. That was a period of intense conflict between different native villages here in the YK Delta. And no one knew exactly when it had happened other than it happened before the Russians arrived. This collective communal house was burned down by attackers from another village up the Kuskokwim. We think it happened about 1640 based on carbon dates of the charred grass and so on the floor.
We've been excavating Nunasuk for about 6 years now. I sent Rick a few pictures of artifacts I had from the locals. He came right over. He didn't even unpack. He went down the beach and they started walking and they started finding artifacts. Those first group was a tough bunch. There's these 3 students and a professor that come down and start looking for artifacts. Wind, rain, shine, they do it. My mind was saying, man, these guys are crazy. But they're trying to beat the erosions.
We get bugs, we get weather, we get wind, we get rain. Ouch, there's one now. And so they're pretty challenging conditions. We put in as many hours as we physically can, 12 to 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, just so we can get to it in time.
Pizza! Give me pizza!
Rick's just great. He doesn't stop. He's a perfect person for this site. I wouldn't have no one else run this site except him.
Well, I first came to Alaska to work as a graduate student in 1983, and luckily it was a preserved site much like this one in Kodiak. And that one was also eroding, and we worked hard to get a sample from that, but at the same time our assumption was there were going to be more sites like that, and the whole thing washed out. There wasn't even a rock, a firecrack rock left behind. That was shocking. And we ended up only getting a 10% sample at best, and that's not going to happen again. We're getting things that normally you just see in museum collections. We've got arrows with the feathers still lashed to them, grass rope that was used to make dog harnesses, that kind of preservation.
There's a piece of hair right here. I found that in my screen. PT found a ridiculously large amount of hair, and Bridget found another huge clump of hair today. It seems like when they cut their hair, they just let it fall wherever it wanted to. So there's the lamp. The hair is kind of sticking out right there. It's all over the place, actually. There's been way hairier lamps, too. It's like, oh, you find hair, and you're like, oh, this is like a hair sample, and then you dig a little more, and then it's actually a lamp.
Bridget found an earring in the screen.
Yeah, that's definitely faunal.
Yeah. And then I would have it goes up to about there, I think. So I don't know how they actually wore them, like how it fit in.
Yeah, they kind of look like clip-ons.
Yeah.
I've heard that we're up to around 30,000 museum quality pieces, which will be coming back to Queen Hawk in 2017. We're hoping to get a cultural center built here, and then I'm hoping all the artifacts will remain in the village.
We estimate the site might have 5 to 10 years left maximum. It could be lost in one big winter storm. It's like museums on fire or a library, and you have to rush in and save as many books and pieces of art as you can. And we're seeing things that people remember from their childhoods. Elders have a chance to reacquaint themselves and their children with tangible remains of their heritage.
Yeah, this project's been great. I'm just honored to be part of it, a small part of it.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Well, out here in the Beaufort Sea, new ice has started to form, I believe, back up in this area here and possibly through here as well. But it's still continuing to slowly melt. What's in along the coast and still some low concentrations are still, again, in close to the coastline here on the east side over to about Kaktovik. But this area, pretty well thinned out, especially the heavier ice over the last week, 5 to 7 days, is definitely less than what it was. And moving on to the coastal water forecast. Northeast winds 10 to 20 knots, central and south coast. East-northeast 10 to 15 on the north side there at 6-foot seas. North winds 15 knots for all of the inside waters from Lynn Canal right on down to Clarence Strait into, through Clarence Strait. And then for Sunday, winds stay north, 10 to 15 knots here for the inside waters. Seas running 2 to 3 feet, so a pretty nice couple of days coming up here for the weekend here, all across from Yakutat all the way down across the area to Annette, Metlakatla, Heidelberg. North winds at about 10 with 5-foot seas. And for Prince William Sound, east 15 tomorrow, seas 2 feet. East-southeast 15 for the North Gulf Coast. Seas not bad, 4 to 5 feet. Winds increased a little bit there for the Barrens, southeast 20 with 5-foot seas. And then small craft advisories for Kamishak Bay as those east winds pick up to 25 knots. These will build to 7 feet, but light northerlies for Cook Inlet. And the forecast for Sunday, north to northeast 10 to 15 for Cook Inlet, north 15 Kamishak Bay. Seas down to 3 feet now. Small craft advisories now for the Barren Islands, north 25 knots, seas at 5 feet. And east-southeast small craft advisory winds at 25 knots for the North Gulf Coast, seas up to 6 to 7 feet. A little bit of a pickup there in Prince William Sound, northeast 20, seas still at 2 feet. And for Kodiak Island along the east side, south 15, east 15 Shelikof Strait, turning southwest here from Sitkinak to Castle Cape at about 15. 20-knot winds for the Alaska Peninsula, 5 to 8-foot seas, south 15s for Bristol Bay with seas at 3 feet. And for Sunday, west winds there in the bay at 20 knots, 5-foot seas, west-northwest 15 knots for the peninsula with 6-foot seas. And west-northwest, 20 knots for Kodiak Island, all the way down to Castle Cape. And for the Aleutians, Fox Islands, generally west, maybe west to northwest at about 20 knots, seas 5 to 11 feet actually. In those areas, small craft advisories here, all the way out for the remainder of the Aleutians, either due to seas or the winds, at northwest 20 to 25 for the Adak-Atga area, 20 to 25 from the southwest with 8-foot seas or 7 to 8-foot seas out to the west. And then southwest winds at 20 here for those western zones. Central Aleutians, light southwest 15 and seas 5 to 6 feet. And for the Fox Islands, kind of a westerly flow here. On the light side, 10 to 15 knots, seas 5 to 6 feet. And for the southwest coast, light west breeze at about 10 knots seas running 4 feet, northwest 20 for the Pribilofs with 7-foot seas, and west 25, seas up to 11 feet there for St. Matthew Island, and west 15 for St. Lawrence Island. I was looking at Norton Sound, or there will be east 20 tomorrow with 2-foot seas. And then for Sunday, southwest 15 to 20 there, Norton Sound out to St. Lawrence Island, south to Nunivak Island, turning west south of the island into Kuskokwim Bay at about 20 knots. Southwest 15 for both the Pribilofs and St. Matthew Island, seas at 6 feet. Up to the Arctic coastal areas, gales out for the far western zone there, toward Kaktovik. East 35 knots, 7-foot seas, and small craft advisories for the remainder of the coastline all the way down to Cape Beaufort. Well, they'll be east of 25, and those seas running 5 to 6 feet. And then some 20 knot southeast here off the northwest capes, and then back up to 25 knots, small craft advisories for the Chukchi Sea. And then the outlook for Sunday, east winds 20 knots, Wales all the way up to Cape Beaufort, 4 to 5 foot seas. And small craft advisories continue pretty uniform now on Sunday, east 25 knots everywhere, seas running 5 to 7 feet. And for tonight, stays fair here, central eastern interior to the border, and again, the frost advisory, clear skies over the panhandle, mostly for the northern 2/3 over to about Yakutat, lows 29-ish to 35, and increasing clouds and moisture will continue to be slowly on the increase here and try to nudge eastward. And then for tomorrow, we'll see that actually spreads the southern Kenai Peninsula, and much of the southwest interior will be cloudy, the chance of light precipitation back to the northwest there, clear in the north, sunny in the panhandle, and rain for south central Alaska to the Seward Peninsula on Sunday.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.